From Relay FM, this is Connected, episode number 39. Today's show is brought to you by Squarespace, Build It Beautiful, Harry's, an exceptional shave at a fraction of the price, and Blink, better affiliate links. My name is Mike Hurley, and I am joined, as always, by the editor-in-chief of MacStories.net, Mr. Federico Viticci. Hi, Federico.
Hello, boss.
Hey, buddy. And I'm also joined on 512 Day by the editor-in-chief of 512 Pixels, Mr. Stephen Hackett.
Hey, guys.
What can you tell the people why it's 512 Day today?
Because it's May the 12th. It's like the May the 4th is jokes, but better.
Because American dates are dumb?
Yeah, they're weird.
No.
They're weird.
Why would you put the date before the month?
Because you say the 12th of May.
No, I don't.
Reason.
I say May 12th.
No, I'm not saying you, but that's the way that we say it. We say it like that. We don't say May the 12th. We say 12th of May.
Ridiculous. What's next? Healthcare for everyone?
Yes. And also, because when you talk, you just assume that you know what the current month is. So you just need to say what day it is. Because you know that it's May. So you just need to say the day, not the month. So why would you say May 12th?
No, that does make a lot of sense in conversation.
When you think about it, all our cultural changes actually made a lot of sense.
Hey, I'm all for using the metric system. You guys drive on the wrong side of the road, but...
It's the metric driving system. That's what you need to employ.
No, Mike, that's just wrong. What you do in the UK is just wrong. I don't know why. I'm pretty sure there's like a royal family reason why that's the case.
I'm just going to go out on a limb and say it's more safe.
Why? Why is it more safe?
No,
it's not safe because when everybody from like planet Earth goes to the UK, it's not safe.
Well, it's more safe on our roads to drive on the left.
Oh, okay.
No, if you're in a head-on collision, you are closer to the center line. How is that safer? We will let the follow-up decide.
Yes.
I'm not even 100% sure what you just said to me, Stephen.
Send Mike a tweet about the driving conditions.
Yes. Hashtag Mike was involved in a car accident. And
that's too long for
You don't want to use that hashtag because then if I am, you're going to feel really bad, you know?
You don't. When's the last time you rode in a car?
I don't drive cars, but I ride in cars, every now and then.
From random people?
When's the last time?
Hop into cars?
Like last week, I get lots of Ubers.
Oh, okay. Wow. Look at you, all fancy and 2.0.
I'm pretty sure that Uber is not Web 2.0.
Yeah, whatever. That's just what people say these days.
Yeah, they have an E in their name, so they're definitely not Web 2.0. Web 2.0 would be like UBR.
No, it'd just be BR.
Bruh. No, that's a line break.
Nerd humor. Okay, so we have just a couple of pieces of follow-up this week.
We do. It's really one piece of follow-up with 2 chapters.
Yep.
But it's one book. So the Amazon Music app, so as part of Amazon Prime, you can upload music and stream it and all that sort of stuff we've talked about in the past. Well, Dusty writes in to say that that app has lyric support. So you're listening to a song and you can see the lyrics. And that's great, but no one uses Amazon Music, so we didn't know that. I tried it when it first sort of surfaced, and it was kind of miserable. I've never been back. And then we have another piece of follow-up saying that an app called Deezer, Deezer, does this as well. And have you guys heard of this app? I had not.
Yes. Yeah, it's a European.
Deezer, when we did, I think, last year, do you remember that article we did on the state of like ecosystems for music, movies, like the iTunes store, the Amazon store?
Yeah,
and we
of course.
Like the geographical map. And Deezer at the time was actually, I think, one of the music services in most countries. It's very popular in Europe and I think Latin America. And but yes, this thanks to Dusty and Razvan for the follow-up, because it means that I have at least 2 other music services to try. So I shall make a Deezer account and try Deezer. I think based on what I got on Twitter, also the same follow-up, Deezer only shows like a lyrics icon just for some songs, so it's kind of weird. And I still don't know whether the lyrics feature in Amazon Music, is it based on the Whisper Sync stuff that they do for books?
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I think all that sort of stuff is kind of tied together with them.
Yeah. So
But I think it was just a
gotta
couple
try.
of highlights of like there are some official first-party apps with first-party offerings which give
True.
lyric support, right? I think
Yeah.
that was what, because as well, like, as we got this follow up from a few different people, and most people I don't think used the services. They just knew that it was there.
You just know. Yeah, but I want to try, especially Amazon Music, because they do. I mean, I'm not sure whether it's even supported in Italy, but they do the Drive uploader thing where you can like upload music. Can you also stream music? I don't know. I'm an Amazon ignorant. Here.
Probably. I think they do. I think they have an instant music catalog, like they have an instant video catalog.
Mm-hmm.
Have you played around with the Google one? Did you say? Did you try all access?
Yeah. I mean, I'm still paying. For actually, you know what I did? I got an email to try the upcoming YouTube Music Key beta. You know, they're doing the music service kind of stuff for YouTube where you can like save videos offline and skip the ads. Like actually never see the ads. So they sent me an offer. If I want to pay €7.99 each month instead of $9.99, I will get YouTube Music Key once it launches on the web and iOS. And in the same package, I get the Google Music All Access. So I'm paying basically €2 less, and I have Google Music now, and eventually, I suppose, I will get Music Key on iOS.
Cool.
Okay. Right. So we have a few topics this week. We want to talk about the Mac App Store and iOS 9, like our predictions in that following Federico's article, and Stephen has many opinions and thoughts about the Mac App Store. But I think before we do that, considering we have a couple of nice topics mapped out like that, we should take our first break for this week's episode. And I want to take a moment to thank our friends at Harry's for helping support the show again. Harry's, they are a great company that help people with their shaving pain. We know that shaving sucks, right? It can be uncomfortable, it can cause nicks and cuts and scrapes and razor burn. And razor blades can be, they're not only can be tough on the skin, they can be tough on the wallet. And one of the reasons for that, one of the reasons they can cause these problems on the skin is because you really should be refreshing disposable razor blades quite frequently, because the more new the blade, the better the shave, and that can be difficult when you're paying an arm and a leg for these big brand blades. And that is where Harry's comes in. They make their own blades. They have a high quality, high performing German blades from this fantastic factory that they found over in Germany. They purchased the factory to make sure that they could always get these great blades, because in doing that, they're able to pass the savings on to you, right? They can offer these high quality razors about half the price of other big branded blades. The Harry's blades will ship for free to your front doorstep. Their starter set costs just $15, and you'll get a razor, moisturizing shave cream, or foaming shave gel. I love the foaming shave gel myself. And you also get 3 razor blades in that set, just $15. It's one of those things that for that amount, and considering as well, I'm going to tell you in a moment how you can get $5 off. So you end up getting this set for just $10. Like, that is something worth trying. Because, if you end up loving it, on average, an everyday shaver saves $150 a year when they use Harry's blades. And Harry's also makes sure that your satisfaction is guaranteed, because that's something that they really care about. I love the way that Harry's razors look. They have a really nice kind of cool retro, I think I heard John Gruber say once, like a Mad Men style, like this kind of cool retro feel. I like that a lot. I love their new products. I love their aftershave moisturizer. That's really great. It's got a great smell to it. Keeps my face nice and smooth. I think that Harry's products are just something that's worth it. Like, for anybody in your life that needs to shave, Harry's is a great company to help you with that. You can experience a clean, close, comfortable shave with Harry's right now. Go to harrys.com, that's HARRYS.com, and you can get $5 off if you type in the coupon code CONNECTED with your first purchase. That's HARRYS.com. Enter the code CONNECTED at checkout, and you'll get $5 off to start shaving better today. Thank you so much to Harry's for their support of this week's show.
Yeah, so the Mac App Store has been in the news a little bit this week. It started with a blog post by the developer of Redacted for Mac, which is this new little Mac App Store app where you can bring a screenshot into it, and you can, blur out private information. Kind of like Sketch does some of the stuff, but Sketch is terrible in almost every way. Really nice little app. It's I think $5, $4.99 in the App Store, and it had a pretty good day. I think a lot of people blogged about it, and it sort of made the press rounds. But there was a blog post about it that really sort of set the world on fire a little bit with the numbers of kind of what's going on in the App Store with purchasing and income made and that sort of thing. Did you guys see this stuff?
Yeah. I follow Sam on Twitter, and I actually the first point that I want to make, it's a very simple utility. It looks useful, especially if you don't need like the full set of editing capabilities of something like Sketch. You just want something to hide specific information from an image. So the app looks fine, looks cool. But what struck me immediately is that he said in his blog post that it basically didn't do any marketing. It didn't have any marketing plan for the app. Just tweeted the release of the app, and it ended up somehow on Product Hunt, which is this website where people share new products every day, which sounds terrible, especially if you have news overdose on a daily basis. But it's not so terrible actually if you're looking for new stuff. Anyway. So just tweeted a tweet and a post on Product Hunt. It was in the top 10 of the Mac App Store. And the first thought that I had was like, oh my God, this guy basically didn't think about marketing. What was he expecting, in terms of revenue and results from the app? Because if you don't have a solid marketing plan these days, with so much competition, with so many apps, you need to get the word out beforehand. But the counter-argument to my thought was like, yeah, but this developer, with just a tweet, he managed to get in the top 10 of the Mac App Store. So when you think about it, it's crazy. So but I want to discuss with you, Steven and Mike, what's the problem here? Is it that developers don't make enough money? Is it that the algorithm that governs that, the way that the top charts works in the App Store and the Mac App Store in this case, is it that the problem, that we don't know how sales or revenue count against the top paid? Or what's the other problem, that that Apple needs to help indie developers more? Because I see these numbers, and it's kind of absurd when you think about it. That just with a tweet, you're in the top 10, but actually you don't make much money.
Right. So I think what you're saying is actually a problem in of itself. What you're saying is it takes no marketing, you can get to the top. There's no friction, in the seemingly to make great leaps and bounds in the Mac App Store. And so we should clarify a couple things. One, Redacted on the launch day was the number 8 top paid app in the US. Not the there's different lists. There's top paid, there's top grossing, different stuff, but top paid, number 8 in the US, number 1 top paid in graphics, with 94 downloads, with $302 in Sam's pocket after Apple's cut. And so we're not talking about big numbers. He talks about in this blog post that 37 people tweeted him, like guessing how much money he made, and the average was $12,000. Like $302, yes, is like pretty good return on a tweet, but sort of miserable money overall, like in sort of the grand scheme of things. And so there's the issue of going to get to what I wrote and the reaction to that, but there seems to be like this, almost like this vacuum in the Mac App Store where you can just drop a pebble in it makes these huge waves. And the fact that $302 is a huge wave in the Mac App Store is really sort of problematic. And, lots of people, there's sort of this group of people on Twitter always talking about the app stores and Apple's policies, and like maybe Apple was tinkering with the top paid algorithm that day, and so maybe this isn't accurate. Yeah. But like all we know is what Sam wrote, and we he's being honest and transparent about his numbers. And so even if the App Store, like the computer that ranks the top paid one, was gone berserk, I don't think that's really like a factor we can put into this. I think it's safe to say that by any number of metrics, the Mac App Store is unhealthy, and I think a lot smaller as far as like sales volume than Apple would like to let on, and maybe that I even thought beforehand. I mean, I was surprised when I read this. I think a lot of people were. This blog post really made the rounds. I think both of us linked to it. I saw it on The Loop and a bunch of other sites. Like this really hit a nerve with a lot of people because the Mac App Store has been a sort of a sore point in the community for a lot of reasons. There's obviously things like sandboxing, where developers had this set of rules forced on them that broke a lot of really good apps. I think about our friends at TextExpander, who, all of a sudden their app, which is completely awesome and viable, has difficulty operating in this new world. So I've read a little bit about this, and basically what it kind of boils down to for me is that, look, the App Store is clearly struggling, right? Developers have left big name, long time, like powerful Mac applications cannot be found in the Mac App Store. At best, they're found in the Mac App Store and on companies' websites. You think about like the Omni Group, they sell stuff in the App Store, they sell stuff on their own site. Usually the stuff on their own site is updated more quickly and maybe has features the other one doesn't. And so my thought was, look, it's time for Apple to invest in and take a long, hard look at the Mac App Store. What can it do to solve these issues, not only for developers, but for customers as well? If you go to the Mac App Store, there's a lot of Apple stuff and there's a lot of garbage. And it's not exactly an encouraging place to be if you're a new Mac user. And I think Apple needs to do that, or they need to seriously consider like what the future of the Mac App Store is. And what I said was they should just shutter the thing, which when your site or when something you write ends up on Hacker News, any sort of humor is lost in it to those readers. I got a lot of really nasty email about
People
that.
from Hacker News?
Yeah,
Oh man,
you would not believe some of the email I got this week. But clearly, I don't think the answer is to shut down the Mac App Store, right? I'm not advocating that. Like, I'm sorry if you missed what I thought was a clever sentence. Like, too bad. But I do think it's an interesting thing to talk about is if the Mac App Store really is as unhealthy as blog posts like Sam's make it look, what could Apple do to fix it? What could Apple do to revive it, to make it better for what is still a very important platform for the company?
Yeah, I agree with you, like, completely. I think the basic problem in this story, it's not about marketing and redacted the app, which, by the way, so far, I saw a tweet from the developer today. He has made, especially after the press picked up on the story, he has made over $4,000 in revenue so far. So not bad for a simple utility. But anyway, the problem is not redacted. It's not, how the top paid charts work. And there's some weird stuff going on with the top paid and top grossing. And it's basically just a black box. And we don't know how it works. But that's not the main problem. As you say, Steven, I think the problem is that the Mac App Store has been neglected by Apple for a long time. And this is true in many cases. Like, they do a promotion on the iOS App Store, they don't do the same promotion on the Mac App Store. They launch a new feature for the iPhone and iPad App Store, they don't do the same for the Mac. Many times the same apps are featured, for weeks. And they basically just threw in a simple new design for Yosemite, but the basic design of the Mac App Store is unchanged from 4 years ago. And they just don't seem to care about improving the shopping and customer and developer experience with the Mac App Store. For example, as a gamer, I wouldn't want to buy a game from the Mac App Store because simple stuff such as detailed hardware requirements are not listed on the Mac App Store. So if I want to buy games from the Mac App Store, I cannot see the full list of hardware that is recommended by the developer or necessary to play a game on my MacBook. And Steam, for example, gives me a much better experience as a gamer. And as a developer, there's been a lot of back and forth a few years ago with the sandboxing, but as we've seen with many high-profile developers such as Panic and others that have left the Mac App Store, obviously some stuff is not working. And I believe that for Apple, it's maybe a problem of resources, that they just allocated too much to the iOS App Store, and so they cannot have the same kind of frequency of innovation and new stuff, promotions, features, redesigns as they do on iOS. They cannot do that on the Mac App Store, which is sad because there's people making a living from Mac apps. So is this fixable? I think so, but it needs it needs Apple to kind of, as you said, Steven. So I don't understand why people would send you nasty emails. People are crazy. You shouldn't care. But anyway, they should take a look at the Mac App Store, because next year it will be 5 years old, and it's maybe time for a change. Because in 4 years, the only big change that we got was minor redesign for Yosemite. So, except, of course, if you don't count the restrictions that they put on developers during the Mac App Store existence, which was awful especially in terms of sandboxing, and then iCloud. Developers had to constantly cope with Apple's changes on the Mac, which can be difficult, especially if you're used to a specific type of utility and access to the OS, and then suddenly stuff changes. It was awful, and yeah, I agree with Steven. For a change.
I think the worst part about the Mac App Store is sandboxing, right? Because the developers are used to not having it. As customers, we're used to having apps that don't need to conform to these restrictions. And plus, I know that they warned about it, but you could put anything on the Mac App Store, to a point. When it launched at first, sandboxing wasn't a thing, so you could just a lot of apps had to leave that were there originally, but they put sandboxing and it took it away. And I think that is something that maybe Apple should, if they want the Mac App Store to work, they need to think about removing the sandboxing rules. But that is a whole other thing, right? Because there are very valid reasons why they put them in place in the first place. But that, I think, is what is stopping developers from going all in on it. It's why a lot of companies continue to sell stuff on their own website as well. Because, obviously, one massive part of it is review as well, right? Because once these people are just used to, like, developers like Omni Group, like Smile, like Panic, they're used to doing things a certain way, and then they have to then conform to a more strict set of rules that Apple provides. It makes it a bit more difficult, I think, to eat that as a thing and just do that. That's a tough pill to swallow.
I also think that the ideal customer of a specific niche of Mac software is used to a certain type of doing business with the developer. So for companies such as Panic or the Omni Group, their customers are used to the idea of trials, upgrade pricing, and I can buy the argument that Apple wanted to kind of change people's minds when it came to how you buy software, how you discover new software. But at some point, you just need to face reality and understand that the kind of change that you want to not force upon people, but maybe to strongly advertise to people, maybe that kind of change is just not going to work for everyone. And so you see developers such as Panic pull out from the Mac App Store because this stuff is just not gonna work, because their customers are used to some type of buying apps over the years and doing business with the same company and the same developers over decades. So if you just want to force these developers to kind of change the way of doing business, or to do all sorts of crazy hacks, I remember the Omni Group had put together some way of doing upgrade pricing with OmniFocus, maybe from the Mac App Store and their own website, and basically Apple asked them to shut it down. And so for some companies it's just not gonna work. And the worst part in this story with the Mac App Store is that these are the companies that are making the best software for the Mac. These are the developers that you would want on the Mac App Store, because are the developers that make your new features and your new hardware shine, with software that it's crafted with care and by experts. These are the people that you want to make software for the Mac App Store. So why are you driving them away for some sort of idealistic change that in practice is just not going to work? And I think it's, I wouldn't say stupid, but maybe short-sighted.
I want to close this out unless, Stephen, you have anything more that you want to add by talking about what Dan Council wrote this week?
Yeah, I think it gets into it a little bit, but I mean, we talked about sandboxing, but I think the 30% cut is a pretty brutal factor. Especially, big name companies that don't need Apple's platform. Like iOS, you don't have a choice, but on the Mac, if you're big enough, like the Omni Group, they can just sell stuff to people. They don't need Apple as the middleman, and so I do wonder if that's a factor as well. But yeah, Dan's blog post is really insightful. So why don't you walk us through that?
So there's a few things that I pulled out of this. So Dan and Real Mac, they always in these sort of scenarios provide a good take on stuff. And he is one to watch. And Nick as well at Real Mac. They write really interesting things. And what I liked about this is basically saying that, and a couple of quotes from the article. However, number 8 in the paid charts on the Mac App Store has never really been that great. It's not about being in the top paid charts. It's about being in the top grossing. And that seems to be, that's the same across all stores. But I think the top grossing charts on the Mac App Store is populated by a lot more indie developers than the top grossing on the on the iOS App Store, right? So the key thing is you can see that people are in the top grossing, people that you know. And Dan shares actually a bunch of numbers from Real Mac and across all of their products, and he shares the numbers in the Mac App Store and out of the Mac App Store. And their daily numbers per app actually tend to be much higher in some cases on any kind of average day than Sam's, because they're sitting in the top grossing, and in most instances they're ranking lower than he was because they're the prices are higher, or they're selling in-app purchases and that kind of stuff, and they're able to pull it up that way. And he concludes by saying, I don't think it's a good idea to rely solely on App Store revenue to run your business. The App Store is amazing, but you don't want to put all of your eggs in one basket. For example, Real Mac Software has a number of other revenue streams that help keep the company running. These include ads, subscriptions, crowdfunding, and affiliate schemes. Why would you put the fate of your success in the hands of search and chart ranking algorithms that you have little understanding and zero control over? I mean, that kind of, that last part that's just applicable to the App Store in general. And he's not the first person to say it, but you should go and look at this post and put a link in the show notes, because it shows just the numbers, that they bring in on a daily basis. And this is just an average day for them, right? So you can see, it's like, for example, Clear for the Mac. It was number 15 in the chart. Top grossing, it was number 35, and it brought in $454. Right, so it's very different, and you can kind of get a sense there for how different developers approach these things differently. But it's interesting to see a bigger company like Real Mac share their kind of thoughts and numbers and feelings about the Mac App Store.
Cool.
Right, should we get into some iOS 9 stuff?
Yes.
I want to just talk about our second sponsor first. And this week's episode is also brought to you by Blink. Blink is a universal iOS app that works with the iTunes affiliate program. With the affiliate program, you earn 7% of any sale generated by the links that you create. People click on them, they go and look in the App Store, and you can earn 7% of any sale generated by that can go into your pocket. And Blink makes creating those links dead simple. Now, usually people think that this stuff is just for like writers and bloggers, but that's not necessarily the case. Blink can be used for anyone who ever links to an app, music, like an album or a song, movie, or any other media that's sold through iTunes, the App Store, or iBooks. So, like, for example, maybe you send iBooks store links to your book club every month for the next book that you're going to read, or you have a Tumblr where you link to your favorite music or movies, or you tend to be a kind of person who share the latest app or game that you discover with your Facebook friends. With Blink, you can make a link to share with just one person or everybody that you follow on Twitter really, really easily. It's just easier than any other way that you can find. It makes things very, very simple. And you can make a little money back from affiliate linking, and Blink is the best way to help you do it. So, as I mentioned writers and bloggers, and I know I'm going to ask Federico in a moment because I know that he uses Blink, but it's a tool that people like Federico can use, but it kind of is a tool that anybody can use if you ever share links of any kind of group. To use Blink, you can easily convert existing links into links that have your affiliate credentials in them. So this can include iTunes short links. So when sometimes the iTunes account or whatever they have like App Store / something, you can take those links, expand them, and turn them into a link that you can share. But you can also throw the longer links in, and it will put your code on the end of them. Or you can go into Blink and search across all of the Apple stores at one time. So it will search all of the stores with one. You just type in one word, and it will search them all for you. You can select which store you want to look in, and then you can take that link and basically put it anywhere. Blink has support for sharing things however you want. They have URL schemes as well, and all that kind of jazz for the teacher crowd out there. My personal favorite feature of Blink is its extension. So this lets you harness the power of Blink from within any app. For example, this is something that I do quite a bit. I may see a new game or an app come out on Twitter, or I see it on a website on RSS or something like that. I can tap and hold the link, and then so that it pops up with the share sheet. I can tap the Blink extension. Blink searches it for it in the App Store. I see it, I tap a button to share it, and I can tweet it out to people. So it's just a very simple way. I'm in an app, and I'm able to bring up the link, bring up Blink, and it automatically adds my affiliate token to the end, and I can share it out with Twitter or something like that. It's just a few taps, and I'm making a little money back. Super easy. Now, Federico, you are a fan and user of Blink, right?
Yes, I do. I do use Blink every day. It's one of my most used apps on my iPhone and my iPad, and especially because with Mac Stories and Mac Stories Deals, which is the account that we run for highlighting discounts on the App Store. I link to apps on a daily basis, whether it's an article on Mac Stories Deals on Twitter, or Mac Stories Weekly, which is our newsletter. And it's such you can tell that it's been made for people who do this regularly. You can search, you can copy links in different formats, and my favorite feature is also the extension, because it lets me go to the App Store and copy an affiliate link without having to run a script or a workflow or whatever. It's just it works. And also inside the extension, I love that I can change without going to the app settings or without changing what I'm doing. In the extension, I can change the campaign codes for the kind of link that I want to generate. So because I have different tracking campaigns on the iTunes affiliate account, I can change from the extension whether I want to use a link for my personal account, or maybe from the Mac Stories account, or maybe for the newsletter. We use different campaigns, and we want to keep track of those campaigns. So the Blink extension is really well done, because it lets you change the format and the campaign, and it lets you share. So I can run the Blink extension, then run another extension inside the Blink extension. It's kind of crazy. I love the app. You should buy it. Trust me.
Blink is available in the App Store now for $4.99. If you want to find it in the store, make sure that you search for Blink Better Affiliate Links, because, App Store search. It's tough. Or you can go and find out more at getblinkapp.co, and you can also, find, I'm sure there is an affiliate link on that page as well, there's got to be. So you can let John know, because John is a great guy who makes the app, and I love the app so much that I even lent my voice to the App Store promos, so you can at least go to the store and watch that. Blink, make your links work for you. Thank you so much to Blink for supporting this week's episode of Connected. So, Federico, you posted a big story that you've been working on for a bit about your iOS 9 wishes. And, you have a very long list of very complex wishes and some very beautiful things that you've crafted in there.
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
So I thought we would talk about them a little bit. And go through some stuff, and maybe you could highlight a few of the key things that you're looking for. But I thought before we do that, if you'd let me list mine, because my wishes for iOS 9 are a lot more simple than yours, because I've been sitting for the last couple of days and I've been trying to think of what do I want iOS 9 to have, and I think that my wishes they're not as far reaching, because I can only really think of like nitpicky things that I want to be ironed out.
And I think that eventually you will be the one who will get the most wishes granted. Because I wrote this as iOS 9 wishes, and I do think that it would be great to have this stuff this year. But I think that maybe I already have my article for iOS 10 ready for next year, if I don't get much of this stuff. So it's I expect a lot of things to maybe happen next year or maybe in the next couple of years, but it's just I wanted to write it this year because you never know. But yes, I will let you, Mike, of course.
Thank you. So the key thing for me is better notification handling, and this comes in a couple of different forms, and primarily my desire for this comes from the fact that I'm an Apple Watch user, and it's one of the reasons why I think that one of the tentpole features of iOS 9 will be an overhaul of Notification Center. And the way that works, because I think people have wanted it for a while, but now with the invention of the Apple Watch, it actually gives a credible marketing thing for why you would do it. It's kind of the stuff that I would like to see. Something that I've always found insane is there's no global settings, so I can't, for example, turn badges off in all apps. Like, I've always found that crazy, that if I want to make a specific change, I have to go into every single app that may or may not have notification access and flick a bunch of switches.
Yeah.
Like, that's just crazy to me. Just say, a couple of simple things, no badges, or to set, the maximum amount of notifications per app or something that can show on the lock screen, or don't show on the lock screen, or do show on the lock screen. Considering those are the same for everyone, maybe just put it at the bottom or something. Let me just set all apps to, in one fell swoop to not show me badges, for example. Because I have maybe 2 or 3 apps that, I really, at least on... that I can see, every day that I like to have badges. I really don't like to have badges. And that's one thing that I would really like to see better control over. Something that I would really like is more APIs for notifications to give developers more granular control now over what is sent where. Like, for example, I mentioned this with the Apple Watch stuff, how I just want to know on my Apple Watch if I get a DM on Twitter. I don't want to know about anything else that might happen on Twitter, but I don't feel that way about my phone. I want my phone to get more. I want my phone to get, mentions from friends, but I don't want my watch to have that. Because sometimes, you can get stuck in a tweet canoe, I think they're called, and you're there all day seeing people talking about you. My phone's fine for that, to get that, but I don't want my wrist buzzing all the time. So I would like to be able to go into an app and say, you can send this to here, and this to here, and this to here, and that kind of thing. I think that would be really nice. I'd like to see more actionable notification stuff. I'd like to see just more in that vein, because that is really great. I love how you can interact with certain apps, and I would like it if apps could do more of that without then having to launch the app to complete an action. And also quick replies, right, is a big one. I want any app that has a messaging function to be able to do quick replies like iMessages has. I want to be able to clear all notifications. I have actually on a couple of occasions now squeezed my iPhone screen really hard to try and get rid of everything like I do on my watch.
Yep.
It's funny how that just gets there.
It took no time at all for me to want that everywhere.
Yep. I would really like to be able to do that. So they're my notifications feelings. Federico, do you, or Steven, do you have anything else about notifications?
I still don't have a watch, so no, not really.
I would only say that if they're going... So, on one hand, you have nerds who want more granular control, which I do. But at the same time, you have people saying, well, it's really finicky now to go in and do all that stuff. And I think your solution of, give me some universal settings, and I can go from there. I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think that's the right path. The last thing I want is more switches and buttons and settings on my iPhone. But if it were smarter, then, I think they could get away with it.
Yeah, I think with some of the API support, you could offload that into the apps, right? Like, for example, I'm thinking about in Tweetbot, you can go in and say what you want to be notified for, right? I think it would just be nice if I could just have some buttons that I could just tap, phone, watch, phone, that kind of thing. Because at the moment, I can go in and say, I want to be notified for new followers, favorites, retweets, and it can just turn those on or off, and they're in the app already. So I would like it if I could say this goes to the phone and this goes to the watch. That would make me a happy man. Something that I will keep asking for until I get it, and I don't think I'm ever going to get it, is to allow me to pick third-party apps as defaults. And Federico, I think it's probably my favorite part of your article, because you have clearly put way more thought into the implications of this than I have.
Yes.
So for anybody that maybe hasn't read it or whatever, could you sum that up? Like, what? Because, in my mind, it's like, oh, I just go into settings or whatever and say, I want this to be my mail app, this to be my web browser. But you had a really interesting take on some of the other implications that can be a part of that.
Well, in theory, the simple, from a user perspective, it should be like that. You go to the settings and you just pick the different default app that you want to use. So in my article, I imagined 4 types of app that you could change as a default. So the web browser, the calendar client, the Maps application for navigation and directions, and the email client. So just 4 types. And so in theory, as a user, you should just be able to say, I want to use Chrome, and I want to use Google Maps, then I want to use Mailbox, and I don't know, I want to use Fantastical instead of the Apple stuff. The problem is that, or at least the problem that I see, is that on iOS, unlike OS X, Apple has done a lot of integration over the years, a lot of, making sure that there's a reason why Apple makes these apps and that they can communicate. So, for example, when you are in Apple Mail on iOS and you get a message that contains a date or time, like, I don't know, tomorrow morning or maybe Thursday at 10 p.m., that little bit of text it looks like a link, and you can tap it. And when you tap it, you get an option to create a calendar event for the date contained in the email message. When you tap the create event option, you get a calendar interface inside Apple Mail. So that's one of the integrations that Apple has done with their own, email client and calendar client. There's like an extension of Apple Calendar that can create a new event off a message from Apple Mail. Or, for example, you can get, there's integration with Maps and Spotlight, or there's integration with Spotlight and Safari. So what happens when you change the default apps for these activities? So if you change the browser, if you change the calendar, if you change the email client, is there some sort of consistency with the behavior? So for instance, if I want to use Apple Mail, but I want to use Fantastical as my calendar client, and Apple Mail has the same underlined date, the bit of text that is recognized by iOS as a date. If I tap it and Fantastical is my default calendar client, do I get a Fantastical whatever pop-up extension, or do I still get the Apple Calendar extension? Because developers can plug into that area of iOS. So there's a bunch of questions that would need to be addressed by Apple in opening up this choice to users. And I do believe that it's about time to be able to say, thank you, Apple, for making Safari. Thank you for making Apple Mail. We do appreciate the effort. And please continue making improvements. No, because I'm serious. Because, most users don't need to change the default apps. But at this point, with so many hundreds of millions of iOS devices in use, there's it's not just me and Mike and Joe Steele and Kyle Seth Gray who want to change the default apps. It's quite a few million of users who do work on iOS and have just different needs, and I believe it's quite a segment of users who want to do this stuff. And most of all, the very basic truth is that you can do this on OS X. And there's no reason at this point, with all these technologies, the new web views with Safari in iOS 8, the extensibility framework also in iOS 8, there's all these underlying technologies, and now it's about time to let users change the default. But there's a bit of of all these integrations and features that you don't really think about when you say, yeah, whatever, just put a switch and let me use the browser. That should be the user experience. But Apple, on its end, I believe they should also address all these minor and not so minor details.
I agree with that. Like, if I'm used to having if I set Fantastical as my calendar, every time I enter a calendar event on iOS, I want to be using Fantastical.
Oh, not to mention Siri. When you say create a calendar event, if you set Fantastical as your calendar, and I don't have any data in the Apple Calendar, I don't have my accounts, whatever. If I say create a new calendar event, what happens? Because that would also require Fantastical to get a Siri API. There needs to be a Siri API, which is another topic. It's all these integrations that you get on iOS, all this stuff that lives in the settings, but also propagates to other features of iOS, to other apps. And I could see Apple making the argument for, yes, you can change the default, but you get all these other stuff only if you use our own apps. And it would be a fair compromise, at least initially. I can understand why they would want to say, yes, of course, you can now open links in Google Chrome. You can now, ask for directions using Google Maps. You can use Fantastical. But if you want Spotlight suggestions, if you want, proper Siri integration, if you want, all these other features, you still got to use our own apps, because we cannot open these up to developers. It would make sense, but just let me open links in my default browser. Just let me use my other calendar. It's not so easy, but it should also be this easy. That's the problem with iOS. It should always be easy, but in reality, it's a bunch of different technologies that you need to account for, and it can be tricky.
So I've got a couple of other quicker ones, I think, as well. So making third-party keyboards usable.
It's so bad.
I don't use any anymore.
Switching. It's so slow. Like, it's ridiculous.
Like, I want to be able to switch easier. I want, like, there's clearly something, like, that developers can't get the same access to autocorrect or dictionary access, like, because they're just not as good. Like, none of them are. So there must be something there that, like, maybe they could get access to, but they don't. I don't know what it is, but there definitely is something where the apps are just not as good at autocorrecting as the Apple keyboard. And I would like that to just be pushed further. If this is going to be something that Apple's going to continue to be serious about, then there needs to be more happening in that space. And that also, for me, in a similar vein, goes for notification center widgets. Like, I'm sick of having to watch them reload all the time. Like, there's got to be something there that can be done to improve that as well,
But it doesn't, at least in my experience, it doesn't happen so much on the iPad. But I believe it's because it's got more RAM.
It might be a RAM.
Memory is a problem with the iPhone. And there's just today a rumor from that, analyst, whatever, the guy who is usually correct about the next iPhone. Said that the next one, it's gonna have an A9 CPU with 2 gigs of RAM. It's possible. It would be welcome, especially on the 6 Plus. The problem with memory extensions crashing, widgets reloading, it's all entire apps reloading, such as Safari on Twitter. It would be welcome.
This isn't really iOS 9, but I'm just gonna say it anyway. Whilst I'm asking for stuff, I want Apple Pay. Just give me that, please.
Yes. I've been keeping an eye on my supermarket.
Yeah.
They do have the contactless thing going on, and I can't wait to go there and be the guy paying with his iPhone. And they don't know what's going on.
You'll be paying with your watch.
And with my watch, yes. If I'm, hopefully crossing my fingers, getting my watch soon. We should have Apple Pay. Totally, I agree. Go Europe.
And I would also like system-wide VIP for more than what it is currently, because basically VIP is mail, right? And then you also have favorites for
Yeah,
calling.
it's weird. Yeah, it's two different things.
And both of those features break through different notification barriers, right? So you can have just notifications on for mail, VIP, and you get those. And on Do Not Disturb, you can have favorites ring through. I would just like that to be one system that also ties into the people in my friends thing on the watch. So those people are all the same, and they get access. They can break through a bunch of different barriers. So they can break through Do Not Disturb for phone calls and for messages, and as well as for emails. Basically, like elevate some people to a point where they can reach me, no matter what.
Yeah, I agree. Especially the difference between VIP, favorite, like there needs to be a common layer of important people. These people matter to me, and no matter where they write or text or call or FaceTime me, they always need to go through.
So currently, we have VIPs, favorites, and friends. They are three completely different. That's what's on the watch.
Oh yeah.
And you can't. Well, I know we're not talking about the watch, but annoyingly, you can't do any of the digital touch stuff to people who aren't in your friends ring. So on my watch is a very different group than my favorites on my phone, because on the watch is basically like everyone who has a watch, but I don't talk to like on the phone or in messages day to day. It's basically our Slack group. It's just that, so I can send like Matt Alexander's not a VIP in mail, but I can send him taps. But if he wasn't in that friend list, I couldn't. Like, I agree, it's just really muddy, and I think it's because these things got added at different times, and it's time for Apple to unify them somehow.
So that's kind of the end of my list, and we have a bunch of listener suggestions that I wanna talk about. So unless either of you have anything burning that you want me to cover, we could take our last break and get to the listener suggestions.
Sure.
That's great.
This week's episode of Connected is also brought to you by our friends over at Squarespace. They are the all-in-one platform that makes it fast and easy to create your own professional website, portfolio, and online store. For a free trial and 10% off, visit squarespace.com and enter the offer code WORLD at checkout. Squarespace, build it beautiful. When it comes to finding a place for yourself on the internet, Squarespace should be the place that you look, because they give you all the power that you need, all the customization that you need. They put it right in the palm of your hands. They give you beautiful templates, beautiful websites, beautiful tools to use, and they take away all the nasty, horrible, ugly things that you don't want to have to deal with, all the tricky things, all that stuff like hosting and scaling and that kind of stuff that you don't want to have to do. Like if you want to have a store, they take away all the payment processing. They have the Stripe integration. They do the inventory management. And they also back this up with like 24/7 support. They have teams that are ready to help you out. They're in New York, they're in Dublin, they're in Portland. They're there 24/7, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with live chat and email support. They're right there for you whenever you need it. Squarespace's platform is getting more awesome all the time. They have beautiful templates that you can use. They all feature responsive web design right out of the box, so it's going to look great on all devices. Their page building system is always getting better. It's totally drag and drop. It's super easy to build pages and rearrange them, and you can now make there isn't like two different systems. You don't go into like the publishing system and then into the backend system. It's all on one page. You see your website on the right hand side. You can make changes to it on the left and they update right there. You can click onto your website and type right into it. It's absolutely incredible. There's nothing else like Squarespace. It is the very best. They have loads of great integrations with like Getty Images to give you stock photography at $10 an image. I mentioned that you can sell stuff. They're their commerce platform. They have Google Apps integration. You can get domains for Squarespace. They can help you with portfolios. They can help you design a logo. It is the full kit and caboodle. Don't forget they have the cover pages as well, that let you create really great single page websites, as well as they have the full websites. They have the cover pages. You can put one of those on the front of a full website. You can really take it as far as you want to make it. You can start a trial right now with no credit card required and build your website today by going to squarespace.com. And when you decide to sign up, make sure that you use the offer code WORLD at checkout to get 10% off your first purchase and show your support for Connected. Thanks you so much to Squarespace for helping us out today. Squarespace, build it beautiful.
So we have a bunch of listener suggestions. So we took to the interwebs and asked you guys, what makes sense for Apple to look at for iOS 9, and we've collected a bunch of these, and I thought we could just We just go through them. So Federico, do you want to tackle this first one?
Sure.
Stephen just didn't want to say the name.
Yeah,
I know what
thanks,
he's up
Steven.
to.
So listener Abimat.
You did better than I
Listener-
would have done.
Yes, listener, you know who. Upgrade pricing, especially on the Mac App Store. So yeah, we talked about this just a few minutes ago. Developers have been asking for the ability to say, I have version 2 of my app currently on the App Store, and I'm working on version 3. I want to offer a discount price, what is called an upgrade pricing, to my existing customers if I want to migrate to the new version of my app. That's been discussed many, many times before, and clearly Apple is not, it's not. They are listening, but maybe they just don't think it's the way to go. I disagree, because especially for some type of Mac software with a different price mechanic, a different history, there's customers that have been with some companies for decades. So it's obviously different from the iOS App Store. Even on the iOS App Store, developers have been kind of, finding hacks around the system, especially with Complete My Bundle, with iOS 8 released last year. Some developers have been using bundles to kind of offer discounts to people. But even this workaround has turned out to be problematic for some companies. I saw some tweets from the Omni group and a kind of situation they have going on with OmniFocus 2 for iPhone and the bundle they offered. I haven't been following, but the truth is that there's no upgrade pricing on the App Store. I think it makes sense. It would make sense for some type of Mac software. But again, this is the company that didn't offer any upgrade pricing for Logic when they switched from the old version of Logic to Logic
Pro
10. So they don't believe in upgrade pricing. I don't think that's necessarily right or fair, but I wish they offered it, but just not happening. So you never know. But I'm sorry, Abimat.
John has wrote in, John, who actually makes Blink, which makes sense what I'm about to say here, and this was something that Federico spoke about, so I'm interested to hear your thoughts, buddy. Highlight text or a URL and have that as a place to launch an extension. And you mentioned about extension points, right?
Yeah. So extensions was an amazing addition to iOS, and it totally changed how I use, especially my iPad. I think it's time to kind of extend the extensions, in the sense that right now you can only trigger extensions from the share sheet, which has downsides, both when it comes to discovering extensions, because a lot of people don't actually know what they do, what they are, how you can set them up, etc. And also it has problems when it comes to the inputs. So this has been for many developers. Brian from Tumblr, he has a great collection of issues of extensions and kind of triggering extensions and what exactly gets passed to an extension. That's been a problem for many developers, and I think it would be appropriate to offer better tools to developers and say, okay, you can offer an extension from the share sheet, but you can also have your extension when you copy and when you select text. And again, the Apple has the advantage, they are already doing this stuff just in certain places. So on iOS, if you select text in iBooks, you get a share sheet that you can activate from the selection of text. So it's not, they have a precedent when it comes to text selections, and this could be beneficial to many types of apps. So for instance, if I'm in a lot of people don't know, if you're in Safari and you want to share a selection from the web page. So let's say you're reading a blog post from Stephen and you want to, share a quote from Stephen. Some apps offer extensions that can get the text selection from Safari. And this is totally not obvious if you're just saying, okay, sure, I tap the share sheet shares the web page. That's not true. And I believe that, having an option to trigger extension from text would offer, a better connection between, okay, I select text, then I use the extension. And there's many other points, extension points that I mentioned in my article. Having the ability to trigger extensions in mail or text. It's been so kind of not obvious in the past year to figure out exactly what the extensions support, and I think some consistency would be better for iOS 9, like to say, okay, as a developer, you get access to this and this and this type of data, and you can dynamically adjust what type of data gets passed to an extension. But in reality, they just need more options. They just need to say, okay, you can have an extension here, you can have an extension there, just, to break outside of the share sheet. Because a lot more people would use extensions if only they were available outside of the share icon. Yeah.
I'm going to combine the koalas and Lee. They're very similar.
Koala.
They're very similar ideas of iOS 9 should have WatchKit like glances or complications on on the lock screen. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think it's thinking about it on the phone. It sounds more like widgets. Like that's a thing that everybody's wanted forever on iOS. And I do wonder if this sort of idea, you can have a little projection of your app, outside of it that can be running and just for glanceable information. If that makes sense on something like the lock screen of the iPhone, I think I could argue that it does. Have your little activity rings, when you just turn your phone on or have just little bits of information. I find it really helpful on the watch. I've got several complications, and it's nice because you don't have to go in and dig around. You just tap it, it comes on. You see what you need to know, and then you move on. And I for one, would like to see that, spread to other devices.
I don't.
Oh, yeah?
I just think that's what my watch is for. Like, I used to want widgets and stuff like on my iPhone, but I don't now look at my iPhone for that kind of information. I look at my watch. And I think it makes more sense to have it on that device than to have it on both devices. And you pick one, and I think the watch is the right place for it. And also, from a marketing perspective, don't make less of a reason to own a watch, right? I think that the iPhone, you go in and grab data from it. That's my thing that I keep talking about. You go into the iPhone and you find what you want, and that's what that's about. But the watch displays stuff to you. And so I think glances and complications are a great essence of what the watch is about, and the phone is about apps. And arguably notification center widgets give an element of that type of stuff. But again, I think that even notification center widgets are way more complex than glances and complications. That's just my feeling. I just think now that I have both of these devices, I don't need them to both do the same thing. Federico, going back to something that you mentioned a moment ago about the iBooks text selection, James wants that across the entire OS. Now, I have no idea what he's talking about. I don't know what iBooks text selection is.
No, just when you select text in iBooks, Apple has a share button in the copy and paste menu that lets you share text. Right. So the difference here, there's two things to mention. One, developers can still customize the iOS copy and paste menu and have a share icon, that the share button that opens the share sheet. For example, Pocket and Instapaper do this. And the other thing to mention is that this is, I think James and I use this example because it's an Apple app, and Apple is not doing the share sheet activation from the copy and paste menu in other apps, such as Mail or Safari. But what I didn't mention a few minutes ago, and what I would like to see, would be the ability to trigger specific extensions directly. So let me skip the share sheet section altogether. Again, on the Mac, when I'm in Safari, there's a 1Password icon that lets me go straight to 1Password. I don't need to go to share 1Password and then I open 1Password when I want to use the 1Password extension. I just click the 1Password icon. on iOS, because of maybe the technology's, first version, and maybe also for security concerns, you need to go through the share sheet. You need to say, okay, share, I want to use the extensions. Then you need to say, okay, I want to use this one. And this, I believe, is because, you want to have the user's willingness to use an extension. For iOS 9, it would be nice to say, okay, I don't want to go through all this share sheet stuff every time. Just let me open this extension programmatically, specifically. So if my user wants to have the 1Password login, or maybe the drafts, text capture extension, you can go there directly. So let me skip basically the middleman of the share sheet and let me go to extensions. To a specific one whenever I want. I understand why Apple wanted to group them all together in a single place, but maybe, it's time to be more flexible.
Leading on from that, at GIAC31 on Twitter was saying, having a revised copy and paste menu, and I guess with that, adding these extension points, but also a new iPad keyboard with a way to move the cursor. I think that would be nice to have that everywhere. Like, I've seen some apps do this where you can swipe your finger across and it moves the cursor. I think that's a really nice thing. I still find that frustrating, trying to get the cursor to go exactly where I want it to be. So I would like to just tap in a random place and then just scroll around to find my place would be really nice. Oz has said, and this is I think this is really interesting. I think it's time for an app store cleanup. Withdraw old apps, like maybe last updated in July 2011 apps. Apps that haven't even got the 4-inch screen on them, and time to get rid of them. Federico, you think that this might be a difficult thing to do?
Well, it's it is tricky. I don't think I have the technical knowledge. The App Store, it can be slow, I guess. I don't know.
I think part of this is to get rid of old rubbish apps that haven't been updated, that aren't actively developed from search.
I've been thinking about this for a while. When I say the technical problem is that when you are a developer and you sign a contract with Apple to release your apps on the App Store, I don't know what the terms are. Like, if I give you my app and I just want to have the app on the App Store, the contract doesn't say that I need to update the app. It just says that I need to keep paying my developer fee.
Sure, but terms can change.
Terms can change, yes. But as a customer, as a developer, I don't know. But as a customer, and the App Store is, of course, bloated, and there's so many apps, and when you want to look for stuff, it's difficult because the search results are also bad. And besides the search algorithm, which is kind of crazy, there's also all these other apps, old apps that you come across, and you never can find what you're looking for. But as a user, what if I want to use the old app? What if I'm some kind of freak that wants to use an app from 2010 for some reason? And actually, I'm telling you, in some cases, I came across apps that had a specific feature, or that did something that I couldn't find in recent apps. So what if I need or want an old app? I should be able to find it. I should be able to use it. So I've been thinking about, let's get rid of the old stuff. And I agree. The principle is not misaligned with my interests. But I also feel like it would set a precedent for Apple that maybe they don't want to deal with. Because how do you judge what's old or what's not old?
Again, I think a really good way of it is, is an app Retina, or does an app support the 4-inch?
Sure, but what if I don't care?
Well, it's not about okay, I get what you're saying, but there are people that care on either side. I think at a certain point, Apple does have to do something. I think, because you end up with just a bunch of old rubbish apps that are eventually just gonna start breaking, right?
Not to mention, Mike. I'm sorry, but not to mention the problem of game and app preservation. That
no.
Very much care about. Yeah, what if a developer makes a fantastic app in 2010? Then, just an example. What if the developer dies and
Oh.
a family member continues paying the developer fee? Do you just want to have that app removed from the App Store?
Yeah, but you're charging of
Federico.
emotion to make me sound mean. Like, the thing is, this is a business, and eventually that you end up with an app store that's just full of just like
No, I'm saying maybe have a way to push down these old apps in search results. I agree that they shouldn't be treated on the same level of modern, updated, maintained apps, but remove them outright from the App Store. I don't think that's the best way to go.
Okay. Well, okay.
We might come back to all that. I think
Yes.
that's an interesting topic in and of itself. The last one is from Jonathan, who says, "I'd love to be able to mark a calendar event as Do Not Disturb, then have my phone set accordingly."
I
So
thought this was genius. by the
yeah,
way.
so I could, in Jonathan's bullet point here, I could have my record connected calendar event set to a Do Not Disturb event, and then my phone and watch and everything go into Do Not Disturb for the length of that event,
Yeah.
which is genius in every way.
Like, I can't believe that doesn't. This is like everything else. I'm like, yeah, that would be nice. Like, yeah, I would like that. I would like that. But I read that and I was like, I can't believe that doesn't already exist. I was like,
Yeah.
this is something that should happen.
So why would you want this? I guess
Meetings,
I
podcast.
You don't go to
recordings.
meetings. As someone who spends their life in meetings, I think it would be great. And I think, you could even go a step further, and some Android phones do this where, if you're going to do this, like, go all the way where your phone is even more aware of what's in your calendar or even where you are. So, if a lot of people, including myself, I have Do Not Disturb go on my phone automatically at about 10:30 p.m. And that's great if I'm at home. But like last night, my wife and I were out, and I didn't want to do that because we had someone watching the kids. And so, look down at like, 10:40, and my phone's on Do Not Disturb, and turn it off. It could be great to be able to pair those things. Like, phone, if you are at this address and it is this time, do this thing. And yes, like that's kind of straying back into like maybe the power user territory. But everyone would find that really nice, is to set some general rules up and the phone know what to do.
the only meetings I take are introspective ones.
You don't want to be disturbed during those personal alone times.
No, I don't care. I just block out everything else.
But it would be useful for podcasting.
No,
though,
I
right?
agree. It would be yes. Now, like I get it. Yes,
So yeah, that I think
I do like the idea of a software option triggering a setting on iOS. I feel like that could be expanded to other stuff. Yes. I do like the idea of an option setting a global switch on the entire device. I feel like there's potential there. So Jonathan, what have you been up to? This guy, I don't think is just a listener. This is too precise as a suggestion. Who's Jonathan? What do we know about Jonathan?
nothing off the top of my head. I mean, I can try and
Mhm.
find some stuff out if you want.
We will investigate you, Jonathan.
That's creepy.
That's terrifying. All right, so that brings us to the end of this week's episode of Connected. If you'd like to find the show notes for this week, go to relay.fm/connected/39. If you'd like to find us online, you can find Federico at macstories.net, and he is at Vitici on Twitter, VITICCI, and Stephen is at 512pixels.net, and he is at ISMH. And I am iMike, IMYKE, and I am the host of many shows here on the lovely Relay FM, of which Connected is a part, and you can find this show and many more over at relay.fm. Thank you so much for listening this week. Thanks again to our sponsors, Harry's, Squarespace, and Blink. And we'll be back next time. Until then, say goodbye, guys.
Arrivederci.
Adios.